Welcome to Classical Narrator. History is not merely a collection of dusty dates or a list of names etched in cold marble. It is a pulsing, breathing drama of human ambition, staggering genius, and the occasional descent into absolute madness. Today, we are peeling back the heavy velvet curtain of time to look into the eyes of the titans who defined our world. We aren't just looking at what they did, we are looking at who they were when the crown was heavy and the ink was wet. From the back alleys of Elizabethan London to the blood-stained floors of the Roman Senate, we are searching for the truth behind the legends. I invite you to stay with me until the final word, for the connections we discover today will change the way you perceive the modern world. We begin our journey with a man who owns the English language itself, William Shakespeare. Born in 1564 in the market town of Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare is often portrayed as an ethereal poet, but let us look at the man through the lens of reality. To his neighbors, he wasn't a bard, he was a shrewd, sometimes ruthless businessman. Shakespeare didn't just write plays, he was a primary shareholder in the Lord Chamberlain's men. Every time a groundling paid a penny to stand in the mud at the Globe, Shakespeare saw a return on his investment. He was so successful that he retired back to Stratford as one of its wealthiest citizens, spending his later years suing people for small debts and hoarding grain during famines. Consider the lost years, those 7 years where he completely vanishes from the historical record. Was he a soldier, a schoolmaster, or perhaps a law clerk, which would explain why his plays are so saturated with legal jargon that lawyers have spent centuries debating his training. Even his death carries a whisper of drama. Legend has it he died after a night of too hard drinking with fellow poets Ben Jonson and Michael Drayton. He left his wife, Anne Hathaway, his second-best bed, a detail that has fueled thousands of academic debates. Was it a final insult or a sentimental gesture for the bed they shared for decades? Regardless of the man, the words remain. He gave us over 1,700 words. When you say you are in a pickle or waiting with bated breath, you are speaking his soul. From the theater, we march into the heart of the Roman Republic with Julius Caesar. If one man embodies the transition from a republic to an empire, it is he. Caesar was a master of the long game. As a young man, he was captured by Cilician pirates. When they demanded 20 talents for his release, he was insulted. He told them they didn't know who they had caught and insisted they ask for 50. While in captivity, he didn't cower. He treated the pirates like subordinates, reading them his poetry and threatening to crucify them all once he was free. The pirates laughed, but Caesar didn't joke. Once the ransom was paid, he raised a fleet, hunted them down, and did exactly as he promised. That was the essence of Caesar, a man of absolute conviction and terrifying focus. His conquest of Gaul wasn't just a military feat, it was a masterclass in propaganda. His commentaries were written in the third person to make his brutal conquests seem like objective, inevitable history. But his greatest gamble was the Rubicon. By crossing that river with his legion, he committed high treason. "The die is cast," he famously said. He broke the back of the Republic and paved the way for the emperors. Yet, for all his genius, he couldn't see the daggers in his friends. The Ides of March was a tragedy of ironies. He died at the feet of a statue of his former rival, Pompey. In the shadow of Caesar's death rose the woman who nearly stole Rome for herself, Cleopatra VII. Forget the Hollywood tropes. Cleopatra was not just a beauty, she was a brilliant, polyglot intellectual. She was the first of her Macedonian Greek line to actually bother learning the Egyptian language. She was a master of political theater. When she met Caesar, she had herself smuggled in a rug to bypass her brother's guards. She wasn't just looking for a lover, She was looking for a Laura Legion to secure her throne. Her later alliance with Mark Antony was a challenge to the very foundation of the Roman world. The tragedy of Actium and her death by an asp, whether true or a myth of her own making, remains the ultimate act of defiance. She chose to die a queen rather than be paraded through the streets of Rome as a trophy. Then came the man who actually won the game, Augustus. Born Octavian, he was Caesar's great-uncle's nephew. No one saw him coming. Augustus was a master of the mask. He realized that if he called himself a king, he would die like Caesar. So he called himself Princeps, the first citizen. He kept the shell of the Republic, but filled it with his own power. He created the Pax Romana, a 200-year peace, but he did it with a velvet glove over an iron hand. He famously claimed to have found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. But his personal life was a tragedy. He passed laws against immorality, only to be forced to exile his own daughter Julia for the very crimes he sought to ban. Contrast Augustus with Nero. If Augustus was the architect, Nero was the performance artist gone wrong. He was a man who didn't want to lead an army, he wanted to lead an orchestra. He would force the Roman elite to sit through his hours-long singing recitals. Historians tell us that people would fake their own deaths just to be carried out of the theater. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD gave him the chance to build his golden house, a palace so vast it had a rotating dining room and a 100-foot bronze statue of himself. His reign was a spiral of narcissism that ended with the murder of his own mother and his eventual forced suicide. His final words, "What an artist dies in me," tell you everything you need to know about the ego that nearly broke an empire. We conclude this first half with the philosopher king, Marcus Aurelius. Aurelius is the antidote to Nero. He was a man who had absolute power but used it to seek virtue. He spent his nights in a cold tent on the Germanic frontier, writing his meditations, not for us, but for himself. He faced the Antonine Plague, which decimated his people, with a stoic resolve that still inspires millions. He is the proof that even at the height of imperial power, the human soul can remain humble and focused on the good. We continue our journey in the blood-soaked court of the Tudors with Henry VIII. To many, Henry is a caricature, the fat king with 6 wives. But in his youth, he was the golden prince of the Renaissance. He was an athlete, a musician, and a theologian. His break with Rome wasn't just about a divorce, it was a primal explosion of ego and survival. He was haunted by the need for a male heir to prevent another civil war. In his pursuit of that son, he tore the religious fabric of England apart, executing his closest friends and mentors like Thomas More. He became a man who was feared more than he was loved, a giant who grew physically and politically until he dominated the very idea of Englishness. Following him was his daughter, Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. Elizabeth was a master of political image. She turned her refusal to marry into a divine mission. She wasn't just a queen, she was the mother of her nation. She presided over a golden age where England stood defiant against the Spanish Armada. But look closer and you see a woman who was a survivor. She had seen her mother beheaded and spent her youth under the shadow of the executioner's axe. She was cautious, brilliant, and fiercely protective of her power. In the shadows of Elizabeth's court worked Christopher Marlowe. Marlowe was the dark mirror to Shakespeare, a brilliant playwright who lived a life of espionage and violence. Before he was 30, he had written Dr. Faustus, a play about the dangers of seeking forbidden knowledge. But Marlowe himself was seeking more than knowledge. He was likely a spy for the Queen's Secret Service. His death in a tavern brawl was long written off as a fight over a bill, but modern historians suspect it was a political assassination. He was a man who knew too much and spoke too loudly. From the theater, we move to the laboratory of Sir Isaac Newton. Newton was a man who changed the very laws of reality. His Principia gave us the mechanical universe, yet he was a man obsessed with the occult. He spent more time studying alchemy and biblical prophecy than he did on physics. He was a recluse who once stuck a needle in his own eye to understand the nature of light. He was also the master of the mint, a role he took with terrifying seriousness, personally hunting down counterfeiters and seeing them hanged. Newton was a man of the Enlightenment who still had one foot in the world of magic. Centuries earlier, Geoffrey Chaucer was building the foundation of English literature. Chaucer was a man of the court, a diplomat who had seen the world. His Canterbury Tales was a revolutionary work because it gave a voice to the common people. He didn't write in Latin or French, he wrote in the English of the streets. He showed us the humor, the grit, and the humanity of the Middle Ages, making him the true father of our literary tradition. Then we have the controversial Oliver Cromwell, a man who led a revolution against the king and won. Cromwell was a man of iron faith and iron discipline. He oversaw the execution of Charles I and turned England into a republic. But as Lord Protector, he became a military dictator. He banned Christmas, closed the theaters, and left a scar on the history of Ireland that has never fully healed. He was a man who thought he was saving England, but ended up ruling it through fear. Finally, we reach Queen Victoria. She was the matriarch of the British Empire at its absolute peak. Her reign was a time of staggering change, from the Industrial Revolution to the birth of the modern world. After her husband Albert died, she wore black for 40 years, becoming a symbol of stoic, grieving duty. She oversaw an empire that touched every corner of the globe, a woman who was the silent heart of a century of expansion. These figures, from Caesar to Victoria, remind us that the past is a story written by individuals with immense flaws and incredible strengths. Their lives are the blueprint for our own. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the souls of history, please like this video and subscribe to Classical Narrator. Help us keep these stories alive by hitting the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and as always, let the past guide your future.